No One Knew the Burden at 30 by Dr. Ogweno. The Burden Song.
No one knew the burden. No one knew the burden that she carried in her heart. Do you wanna know? Someone I know. Are you curious? I'm curious to get to know. Listen to the narrative. I really wanna know how the story all is going. To get to know, listen to the narrative. Listen to the narrative.
Brothers and sisters, he stuttered, I would like to clear things up. The secret I've carried has weighed me down over the years. As some of you already know, I had a family, that is a wife and 2 children. At a certain point, the relationship between my wife and I went sour. I made a very bad choice by leaving instead of trying to work things out. I disappeared for a while and did things I highly regret. Anyway, since I got to know Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior, I have been praying that He would reunite me with my original family. Today, as I stood up to begin my presentation, Nixon introduced his wife. I heard her name and got shocked beyond words. She happens to be my long-lost daughter. I may not give the details of my experience with her right now, but I want to thank God for the mercies of seeing my daughter alive. For those who have been praying for me, I'm truly grateful. It has been a long journey. I know this is just the beginning too. Please keep me in your prayers. Thank you all for listening. Richard left the podium. He walked to a seat and sat down with his head bowed. People had many questions written all over their faces. However, the master of ceremony told them some questions would be answered later. He urged the audience to uphold each other in prayer, especially for their families. For Nixon, that session seemed like the longest he had ever attended. He had been waiting to find out what Richard was going to say. Now he discovered that his father-in-law was alive and well. At the same time, he was very anxious because Betcha had switched off her phone, and when he called the house number, no one had seen her. Immediately the session was over, Richard requested Nixon to drive him to a quiet place where they could talk. So Richard took him to a quiet restaurant about 1 kilometer from the venue. They had a long talk as Richard painfully explained to Nixon how through foolish actions he had lost his family. In between the explanations, Richard would pause as if he was really revisiting the past, and Nixon got worried that he might break down. So he kept interrupting with words of encouragement and seeking clarification where he felt he needed to have a better understanding. Finally, Richard sought his help in reconciling with Betcha. Nixon promised he would try. When their talk was over, Nixon drove Richard to the Mecca Hotel where he was putting up and left for his house. On the way, just as he was about to pass the church where he always took his family to pray, he decided to go in and say a prayer. He got in and knelt at the altar. He did not know how long he had been on his knees, but outside was quite dark. He looked at his watch and it was 10 in the evening. Quickly, he went to his car and drove home. He found his supper well covered on the dining hall table. His wife and children were missing. He tried calling her number. However, her phone was off. He went to check the bedrooms to confirm whether they had suddenly moved out. Their beds were well made, but he noticed A few clothes were missing. Coming back to the dining hall, he was about to call his newfound father-in-law when he heard the children talking outside the main door. He rushed to the door, forgetting that Becher had a copy of the keys and almost removed it from its hinges. "How? You people can give me such a snare!" he snapped at his family. "Relax, Dad. We are fine. We just went out to Mama Kelsey's place. Mom needed to talk to her." One look at his wife, Nixon knew she had cried her heart out. Her eyes were swollen. So he decided to put the children to sleep immediately. Long into the night, Becher told her husband what had transpired in her childhood. He was able to put the pieces together. Becher concluded by telling him that she was not going to forgive that man who had broken her family and caused so much pain in her life. He knew he had a Herculean task to reconcile father and daughter, considering that background information he now had. Looking at the wall clock, they realized it was 4 o'clock in the morning. So they agreed to grab some sleep, considering that they were to have a morning full of many activities. However, Becher was experiencing a maelstrom of emotions. Nixon woke up with a start. It was 7:30 and he was running late. He called out Becher's name and there was no answer. Instead, there was a note on the bed. "Honey, I'm so sorry. I've left briefly just to clear my head. I shall be fine. Just take care of the children. Becher." Nixon got confused. Was he going to go to the conference or to start searching for his wife? What was he going to tell his father-in-law when they met? He sat on the bed for a while, thinking of what to do. Meanwhile, at the conference, Richard kept looking at the doorway to see if either Becher or Nixon would walk in. His anxiety was escalating. Finally, at around 10 o'clock, when he did not see them, he decided to give Nixon a call. Nixon's phone was switched off. He decided that he would give them more time just in case they were late. At around 12 o'clock, he could not settle any longer. He whispered something to his assistant and left the conference hall. He requested for a cab and he ended up in a church nearby. He was feeling queasy. He just needed to be alone and pray. While in the church, the pastor, Oscar Wright, noted that he was a visitor and needed to engage him in a conversation. They had a long talk as Richard decided to unveil his heart to the pastor. At around 3 in the afternoon, he felt better and feeling hungry. He decided to pass by a nearby restaurant to have a snack before heading back to the conference hall. He found a seat in a quiet place and decided to order for a light snack. All the while, he kept wondering what had happened to his daughter, Becher. "Chin, I'm so stressed. My heart is breaking. Imagine my father turned up in the city yesterday," Richard heard a voice saying behind his seat. "What? That is the voice of my daughter Becher," he cried out to himself as he involuntarily stood up to confirm who was talking. Right behind him, Becher was seated facing the opposite direction. He wondered whether to approach her or wait for a better time. He decided to sit down and wait for her to finish the conversation. She continued for almost half an hour. He decided that he would go to her even if it meant committing social solipsism. Just as he was getting up, a phone call came from his assistant, interrupting him. He decided to walk to the patio to answer. They talked for about 10 minutes. When he came back, Becher had left. He got angry at himself. "What have I done?" he chided himself. He decided to ask the waiter where the two ladies had gone. He responded that she had no idea. Richard paid his bill and left heartbroken. He came out of the hotel and was about to hail a cab when his eyes caught Becher standing by the pavement, seemingly waiting for someone. He flew to her side. Good afternoon, daughter. He stammered and his voice went low. Good afternoon. She responded, looking at him inquisitively. You remember me? He struggled to say. Yes, I do. You said you are my father, she retorted, bracing herself for battle. May I have a minute of your time? He asked her. For more, join me next time. Thank you for listening.